I came home from Washington in October and found a paved road right on top of my lake, not beside it on it. They'd laid asphalt-painted lines, put up a private road sign, and 109 homes in Summit Ridge Estates had been using that road for 2 years. The HOA president, a man named Preston Calloway, put the sign up himself, authorized it, and was charging each household $200 a month for maintenance, all on my land with no permit, no permission, not a single phone call. When I told Preston the road was on my property, he smiled and called me ma'am, that polite sneer, and told me I'd confused the boundaries, that I should have my lawyer call his. What he didn't know was I'd spent 30 years as a federal judge, 6 of them on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. What he also didn't know was what that shelf of land does every February when I open the dam gates on the schedule my father wrote in 1962. The lake rises 18 to 22 feet. I open the gates on February 15th like I always do, and by the 20th, 2 of his residents found themselves stranded in cars on a road with 18 inches of water over it. In March, the EPA stepped in. In April, the FBI indicted Preston on wire fraud. In December, he got 4 years in federal prison. I didn't fight anyone with drama. I opened a gate and let spring happen. I'd been away 2 years for a federal appointment, a long, complicated environmental water rights case that kept me in D.C. longer than expected. I didn't mind the work. 30 years on the bench didn't feel like a burden. By October, the case was resolved, and I was finally driving home to Montana, to Lake Voss. I took my usual scenic route from Missoula Highway 200 east, then the county road north toward the property. The approach gives you that 2-mile sweep along the northern shore, the one my father and I used to stop and stare at as kids. I pulled up to the familiar overlook, slowed automatically, then stopped. Something was wrong. That northern shelf, the flat strip from the hillside to the lake's edge, was always natural rocky grassland half the year, underwater, half exposed. Now there was a road 8 feet wide, fresh blacktop center stripe, metal guardrails on the lakeside, drainage culverts every 100 feet. It ran the whole 0.8 miles, connecting 2 sections of Summit Ridge Estates. A green sign caught my eye. Summit Ridge Private Road, authorized vehicles only, no trespassing. I sat in my car for a full minute and just stared, then zipped my jacket and walked down. Up close, the audacity was almost beautiful. Professional construction, proper drainage, crisp road markings. Whoever did it spent real money. I walked the whole length. I know that shelf. I played there as a child. I know how to read the waterline stains on the limestone, how to tell where the lake used to reach. The highest watermark I could see was 22 feet above my standing spot. The road sat 12 feet above the current lake level. Sounds safe, right? But I know this shelf in March when 4 mountain rivers swell with snowmelt. By late February, water runs across it. By March, it's submerged. By April, parts of it are 10 feet underwater. I pulled out my property surveying app. It overlays county GIS on satellite images. I zoomed in. My property line runs along the hillside, extends across the shelf, follows the lake edge. Every inch of that 0.8-mile road is inside my boundary. I took systematic photos, GPS stamped both ends. The sign, the guardrails, the culverts. The water line marks date, October 18th, 2024. County records, no road permit, no easement, nothing. I drove to the Summit Ridge Clubhouse, big timber framing, mountain views, a parking lot full of expensive cars that announce exclusivity before you even step inside. Reception sent me to the HOA president's office. Preston Calloway brass nameplate. I knocked, went in. He stood extended, a practiced smile. Navy suit, gold cufflinks, that posture of the man who's always the smartest person in the room. Mrs. Voss, is it? Sit down. I said, you built a road on my property. His smile didn't flinch. I'm sorry. He said, there may be confusion. This sits in a county wetland buffer. We had it surveyed. Our attorneys reviewed everything. Your survey is wrong, ma'am. We spent $340,000 building that road. I told him that land's been in my family since 1947. My father built Voss Dam in 1958. The lake is entirely within our boundary. Everything there, including that northern shelf, belongs to me. Preston's smile shifted into that condescending, patient thing you give the elderly relative who said something silly. Mrs. Voss, you might be misremembering. These older properties get complicated. I slid the old 1947 deed, the 1958 dam permits, 4 later surveys, 70 years of tax records across the desk. I showed him the GPS overlay on my phone. He blinked. "I'm sorry," I said. "I spent 30 years as a U.S. Federal Judge 6 on the Ninth Circuit. I don't get talked out of what survey data confirms." For the first time, his composure wavered. He recovered fast. "If you think there's a boundary dispute, we can do a joint survey. There's no dispute, it's my land. He built on it, he trespassed. I set my business card on his desk, the one that still lists my judicial credentials. Have your lawyer contact mine. You'll want to do that soon." I walked out. In the car, I sat a moment. He hadn't taken me seriously. Men like Preston rarely take a 64-year-old woman seriously until it's too late. But I wasn't thinking about arrogance. I'd noticed little signs along the road every 50 meters: Summit Ridge Road Maintenance District monthly assessment active. They were charging residents maintenance fees for a road built on my property. I called my former law clerk, Nathan Chen, sharpest legal mind I'd had on the Ninth Circuit in years, now a senior attorney with the EPA Regional Enforcement Office in Seattle. I told him what I'd found: road on the shelf flood cycle, no permits, HOA fees being collected. He listened, then said, "Judge, does the lake drain into any navigable waterways?" "Yes, it drains to the Clark Fork River system." "Then the Army Corps has jurisdiction. An unpermitted structure affecting navigable waters violates Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. A paved road across a seasonal flood zone that connects to a navigable river is a textbook violation." He paused. "If the HOA is collecting fees for maintenance and those fees aren't going to real maintenance, that's fraud. Federal fraud if wires or interstate transfers are involved. HOA fees almost always move electronically." I said, "Not yet. I want to document everything first." He understood. "When's your February maintenance?" "The 15th, as always." He made a small sound. "I'll be ready if you need me." Ready. That night I sat in my father's study. The room hadn't changed since he died. Bookshelves of engineering manuals, his drafting table, the framed dam blueprints. He built that dam with his own engineering and money, created Lake Voss from 4 mountain streams in a valley no one else wanted to touch. He left a lake and a legacy that demanded protection. I opened the operation manual. February 15th, partial gate opening for ice management, increase outflow by 40%. No special authorization required. It's what I've done every year. I made the standard call to the Sanders County Water Management Office to notify them. I logged the call time, the person, the content. Then I turned the gate wheel. The original mechanism, 16 counterclockwise, turns to the 40% mark. I heard the deeper rumble as water pushed through the spillways. The outflow creek surged. I went back inside, drank coffee. I logged everything. I didn't do anything extra. I simply followed the schedule my father had written in 1962. By February 17th, the lake rose a visible amount. By February 19th, it was up 3 feet, the shelf wet, drainage culverts saturating the substrate. On February 20th, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Judge Voss, Deputy Marcus Webb, Sanders County Sheriff's Office. "We've got vehicles stranded on your northern section. Can you come out?" I arrived to find 2 vehicles stranded, a black SUV and a silver sedan, water at the door panels. The road surface was under roughly 18 inches of water across the low stretch. Fire crews and deputies were on scene. Deputy Webb asked to confirm I was the property owner. I handed him a folder with deed, the 2019 survey, and the dam permit listing my ownership. Across the flooded shelf, I saw Preston business shoes mucked in wet gravel, wildly animated on his phone. He stopped his call when he saw me, marched over, breathless. "What's going on? Who authorized flooding our road?" "We have people stuck." Deputy Webb asked me to wait while he gathered facts. Preston turned to me and accused, "You did this. You flooded our road deliberately." I showed Deputy Webb the call log notifying the county on February 15th, my 6 years of maintenance records, the same date each year, and the survey showing the road sits on my land. Preston's voice rose. "She found out about our road and deliberately timed this to destroy it." Deputy Webb told him to lower his voice. There was an active rescue. Then calmly, he asked Preston for permits. Preston hemmed and hawed. "We had a survey that showed this land was county wetland buffer. Do you have county permits for road construction on this parcel?" Preston's answer: "The permitting situation is under review by our attorneys." Within 48 hours, the county inspector, Gary Whitfield, walked the flooded road, checked the permit database, and issued a formal notice. No grading permit, no road construction permit, no drainage permit, nothing. Summit Ridge had built 0.8 miles of paved road, installed culverts, guardrails, painted markings, all without a single permit. The notice required immediate cessation of use, a full engineering assessment within 30 days, proof of ownership of the land where the structure sits, and a hearing before the county board. Gary did what he had to do. He notified the Army Corps. The Army Corps assigned the case to the Regulatory Enforcement Division unusually fast. Nathan had made a few calls. Army Corps move fast when jurisdictional lines are clear. Lake Voss drains to Clark Fork. Clark Fork's a traditionally navigable system, and the shelf is connected. No Section 404 permit existed. Then the twist tightened. A faction of Summit Ridge homeowners who'd been uneasy about the assessments got hold of our civil complaint and hired a forensic accountant, Patricia Drummond, from Missoula. She went through the HOA's records line by line and found what I feared. Summit Ridge collected assessments from 180 homes at $200 a month from January 2023 through December 2024, $864,000. Callaway Construction LLC, formed in November 2022, got $340,000 for the road. That left $524,000. That $500,000 vanished through invoices to PCL Consulting Group, which was Preston's law practice. He'd paid himself for legal consulting each month. It was brazen. He created a construction company, awarded it. The contract paid himself an inflated contract, then funneled the remainder through fake consulting invoices to his own firm. Patricia's numbers were devastating. The actual construction cost was $218,000, not $340,000, a $122,000 markup plus the $524,000 in fraudulent consulting fees equals $646,000 misappropriated. I called Nathan. He told me to call the FBI field office in Missoula. This was beyond state consumer complaints. This smelled like wire fraud. Montana's AG's office sent investigative demands. The state bar opened a review for conflict of interest, fraud, conduct prejudicial to justice. Preston's law license went under interim review. His firm lost clients, partners dissociated. Homeowners voted out Preston's appointees, elected an emergency board, hired Patricia on their side, and filed their own suit against Preston. The local press smelled blood. Preston tried to posture press conferences' claims of government overreach. But the financial trails, the missing permits, the culvert-induced erosion downstream, the evidence stacked. Army Corps documented that the culverts were installed at the wrong grade, channeling water into the road substrate and causing subsurface erosion that showed up downstream. EPA and Army Corps enforcement moved forward. The preliminary civil exposure math was jaw-dropping, preliminary fines in the millions, but EPA exercised discretion and assessed a penalty of $180,000 given cooperation, and the Army Corps ordered full removal and restoration, estimated at $400,000. Preston's personal legal exposure was severe when a lawyer signs off on illegal construction and profits personally. The bar and criminal exposure both apply. He tried to negotiate. His first settlement offer was $150,000. We wanted $600,000 plus full cooperation with federal agencies and no release that would impede criminal proceedings. He agreed. I signed the settlement on March 28th, $600,000, and a written acknowledgement that the road had been built on my property without permission. Grand jury indictment followed on April 14th. 4 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of embezzlement, 1 count of making false statements to a federal agency. The indictment cataloged each electronic transfer of HOA assessment funds as a separate wire fraud event. The embezzlement count covered the $646,000 personal enrichment. The false statements count covered his lies to the Army Corps about permits. The criminal exposure was massive on paper. Practically, he ended up pleading guilty to some counts, cooperating, and the system unraveled his life interim suspension from the bar firm dissolution criminal conviction. Meanwhile, the water had done what nature always does. The road, 8 feet of asphalt, culverts, guardrails, sat under the lake. The Army Corps and EPA ordered removal. Summit Ridge filed for receivership. A court-appointed receiver froze accounts, audited the HOA, hired contractors. By summer, the excavators began pulling up asphalt and hauling aggregate away. The road had been underwater for months. It came back broken and heaved, culverts collapsed. It took 11 weeks to remove it. I watched from the hillside, binoculars and coffee. The shelf looked raw, but it was mine again. Restoration began in earnest that fall and winter, grading, bank stabilization, native plantings. Alpine ecological restoration matched the plant palette to historic photos my father had taken in the 1970s. They broke up compaction, removed the road's aggregate, regraded the natural contour, repaired a 40-foot undercut on the downstream creek bank with bioengineered stabilization, then planted native grasses, sedges, shrubs. By spring it would be healing. By 2 to 3 growing seasons, mostly recovered. Summit Ridge reorganized under new governance, no. Preston, no board members appointed by him. New oversight rules that expressly prohibited making claims against my property. The receiver distributed Preston's restitution to homeowners. The new HOA donated a modest gesture to the Watershed Coalition to support restoration work. Those gestures felt right. Nathan visited in December. We sat on the porch as snow began to fall. He'd helped speed the federal processes, his Army Corps contacts, the EPA referral, his quiet call to the FBI. He watched the lake freeze at the edges and said, "Your father would have liked how this ended. Maybe he would." My father was an engineer. He'd have wanted the record to be complete and the repair done well. 30 years on the bench taught me something. You don't have to fight people who are already fighting the law. You just need to wait for the law to catch up, provided you keep a clear record. Preston looked at this lake and saw a shortcut for 180 wealthy homeowners. He didn't see the woman who grew up swimming in it, the daughter of the man who built the dam, the woman who spent 30 years learning how law protects land like this. He called me confused. I opened a gate, and the lake did the rest. So what do you think when someone uses their small power to take what isn't theirs? How should they be made to pay? Is legal justice enough, or should there be public contrition too? Have you ever seen someone try to steal a community's resources, right? Under everyone's noses? Tell me, was I too patient, or did I do the right thing?